For me, the most challenging part about my two countries and the violations I was researching into was researching my second violation. The violation I was researching was the right to be equal in Saudi Arabia. This was hard because I was researching into female activists in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia does not condone or agree with activism because they see it as a threat against the crown and hence try to cover up all mentions of activism and any actions done by activism in Saudi Arabia. This made it harder for me because I was trying to research into the right to be equal in Saudi Arabia. The two case studies I wrote about differed in multiple ways. They differed in the way that one, Saudi Arabia is a more developed country and Cambodia was not. They both presented different challenges purely through the amount of resources available. As I said earlier, Saudi Arabia does not condone or agree with activism, so it was harder to find information on the violation in Saudi Arabia. However, I found out that if you look hard enough, you can find credible research that credible information that is beneficial. You just need to know where to look and what sites don't give you fake information. My personal identity affected my reaction on the violations I was researching through giving me the feeling of disbelief and frustration on both the topics I researched. My ethical beliefs follow the concept of universal ethics, which is where everybody is treated the same no matter what. So no matter what you do, you are all equal. To read about violations of Human Rights Article 1, the right to be equal, and 26, the right to education, which I feel very strongly about, was hard. The places I have lived in and am living in only strengthen my view about these violations. I have grown up being taught that the right to be equal and to have an education shouldn't have to be fought for. It should just be given to you. To have to campaign or ask for help to get these rights shouldn't have to happen. As a hence, during the writing of this essay, I struggled to keep my personal thoughts out of my essay. I try to keep the perspectives I write about as equal as possible and as credible as possible. I do this by, whenever possible, using the government of a country or some sort of higher power, for example, a church, as one of my perspectives. For example, in my latest essay, The Right to Be Equal in Saudi Arabia, I use the royal family as an example, as one of my perspectives. For the other perspective, if I can, I will use an NGO or group activist or solo activists that are in the country that the government or higher power is from. And if that is not possible, I will write about an NGO, group activist, solo activist that help either combat the issue or support the issue, depending on it. Luckily for the first essay, which was the right to education in Cambodia, I wrote about an issue which I work with personally in school. One of my services, Epic Camport, works with education in Cambodia. I have also worked with the NGO, both personally and through school, that I wrote about in my essay, Kusa for May. For Saudi Arabia, it was harder. However, luckily, there has recently been a case of female activists being sent to jail for driving a car without a male guardian with them, which I used for my second perspective in my second essay. Having written these two essays, I can say that my view on the violations have not changed. I still think these violations should not happen, and everyone should have the right to an education and the right to be equal. However, what I have realized is that the government, and in Saudi Arabia's case, the royal family, are making strides to change the way things are. These issues are not just being ignored like I initially thought they were. And just because the process is slow does not mean there isn't any process. This this tells me that I have realized not everything can be solved with a click of a button or the snap of the fingers. Things, especially world changing things, take time. But that is okay because even though the process is slow, there is still process happening. And at the end of the day, that is all that matters. When I first started my research for my first essay, which was the lack of education in Cambodia, I thought to myself, why don't the more developed countries like America and England come in and help? If they came in and helped, they could have this issue gone within a fortnight. However, as I looked further into the issue, I realized that if the more foreign, more developed countries came in, helped, and then left, Cambodia would be actually worse off, not just as a country, but in general. Cambodia needs to develop its country, primarily by themselves. If another more developed country came in and helped them and then left, they would not be as strong as they could have been. Even though it is harder, they need to build themselves up slowly. It is the same with Saudi Arabia. Although Saudi Arabia do have the resources, so they may not need as much help as Cambodia would, things will still take time. And they need to get through the restrictions they have on their women by themselves without any other country pushing them through this process. If they push if they are pushed through this process, there will always be a doubt about this activists who are fighting for this issue. In conclusion, Saudi Arabia and Cambodia are currently violating the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but they have realized they are violating it. They are not just leaving these violations and issues untouched. The government of Cambodia and the royal family of Saudi Arabia are making strides to fix these issues. And although the process is slow and many people are feeling the backlash, such as the female activist thrown in jail for driving cars without male guardians, there is process and there are strides happening. At the end of the day, that is all that matters because no issue can be solved in a heartbeat. If it can, it shouldn't be an issue in the first place. What is extremely helpful to countries such as Cambodia and Saudi Arabia is not only does the leading power, such as the government and the royal family, recognize that there is something wrong with the violation, but so do the civilians and the general people. What is even better than that is that the general public is doing something about it. NGOs, solo activists, group activists, they are all working towards it. More and more people are taking action against violations of the Human Rights Declaration every day. That is what we want. We should encourage this. One way Saudi Arabia and Cambodia could improve, however, is by having the general public work with the leading power. The more people helping with something, the quicker we can get it solved. If the government or the royal family is willing to work with the local NGOs and activists, they will be able to reach people a lot faster than they would be able to by working by themselves. They would also be able to reach the harder to reach people, the people in the rural villages where the higher power, don't always get to. The same goes for the activists and the NGOs. If they work with the people in power, they will also gain the ability to reach people quicker. Meaning, this is a win win situation for everybody. And it's also a win win situation for the country itself.